Flame Leviathan. You'll want to designate who grabs what vehicles, with your tanks grabbing the siege engines, most of everyone else grabbing a demolisher, and only a few people grabbing a chopper. The siege engines and demolishers can have a separate individual manning the turret. To activate hard mode for this boss, you'll need to speak to Lorekeeper Norganon. This buffs the boss's health and damage for more loot. Every 30 seconds, the boss will pursue a demolisher or a siege engine. They need to run away and use their speed boost ability. The chopper can put tar on the floor to slow the boss as well. Demolishers can load their turret operator and shoot them at the boss to destroy the turret and deal damage to the boss. All demos need to use their pyrite ability to stack as many pyrite stacks as possible on the boss for maximum damage. And the demo and siege engine turret operators can shoot pyrite out of the sky, while the demo pyrite operators use their hook abilities to grab as much as they can. Flame Leviathan will also cast flame vents, dealing raid-wide damage. Siege engines need to interrupt the boss with their electroshock ability. On hard mode, there will be little plant ads that spawn around the fight, just be aware of this. Ignis the Furnacemaster. He casts a frontal scorch debuff towards the tank, so he needs to be tanked facing away from the raid, and this leaves a fire puddle. You can move the boss around in a triangular position as the scorch piles form. He also casts flame jets on the raid, which will knock everyone upwards and deal raid-wide damage. Casters and healers need to stop casting before this goes out, or you'll be silenced for 6 seconds. Ignis will also cast Slag Pot on a random player, putting them in his pot and deal heavy damage to this player. Healers need to spot heal them for the next 10 seconds. Constructs will spawn through the fight, and the other tanks need to tank them in the scorched ground until they're molten. They do drop threat, so make sure to taunt them. Then drag the molten ad into the water to brittle it, and then a ranged DPS should just hit it to destroy the construct. Razorscale. Waves of dwarves will come out, tanks pick them up and everyone interrupt and kill them. Razorscale also shoots random blue fire patches around, just dodge them. Throughout the fight, there will be harpoons in the back of the room that will be repaired. After each one is repaired, click them to shoot it at Razorscale. After 2 minutes, the fourth one will be interactable and it will bring the boss down to be damaged. This is when you want a hero or lust. While on the ground, Razorscale casts a frontal breath, so don't be in front unless you're the tank. DPSing her to 50% will have her permanently on the ground, otherwise you'll have to do another air phase after 40 seconds of her being on the ground, and she'll knock the raid back with a wing buffet. In phase 2, she casts the frontal breath, but will also cast fuse armor on the main tank. You don't want this to reach 5 stacks or the tank becomes petrified for 20 seconds, so taunt off after like 2. XT002 Deconstructor. Throughout the fight, a random raid member will get Searing Light or Gravity Bomb. Distinguish which side the raiders should go to with which buff. They should go to opposite side, because if they come into contact with each other, it deals raid damage. The individual members with these debuffs will take damage as well and should move at least 20 yards from the raid. XT cast Tympanic Tantrum will actually deal 10% of everyone's health every second for 12 seconds, so your healers need to do intense healing through this phase. Every 25% health, XT will expose their heart for DPS damage. All damage you do to the heart will do double damage to XT. Now if you kill the hearts during the heart phase, it will trigger hard mode. And also during the heart phase, ads will spawn from the junk piles in the corners of the room. Now mods will not spawn from the junk piles that are closest to the boss. So one method is to tank the boss at one side of the room near 2 of the junk piles, so the ads won't spawn from those 2. Range should then swap and kill the ads. If you enter hard mode, XT heals to full health and won't do exposed hearts anymore. Every minute, Tympanic Tantrum still happens and does more damage. Searing Light spawns an ad that needs to be killed, and Gravity Bomb will leave a forever lasting AoE circle on the ground. Assembly of Iron. If you're doing this on normal, then you're going to want to kill Steelbreaker first, then Runemaster Mulgum, then Stormcaller Brundir. They do not share health. One tank takes Steelbreaker and the other tank takes the other 2 because Stormcaller's overload ability that will damage melee. Steelbreaker's tank hit is Fusion Punch. Once it happens, it needs to be dispelled. The tank should also try to tank him near a Rune of Power that Mulgum puts out for DPS to stand in because it will buff you. Make sure bosses are not in it, however. When Steelbreaker dies, the others get a damage buff and they heal full. Mulgum puts a shield of runes around him. DPS the shield down and a mage should spell steal the buff he gets. Mulgum will also spawn green runes around, just don't stand in them. Once he dies, you're on to Stormcaller Brundir. In addition to the abilities Brundir has been casting, he will now be casting a Lightning Whirl, which just needs to be interrupted. He'll also cast Lightning Tendrils, lifting him in the air. Range can hit him, but no one should be under him. Hard mode for this boss is activated by killing them in the reverse order. Stormcaller Brundir, then Runemaster Mulgum, and then Steelbreaker. The strategy is similar until Steelbreaker is the last alive. He'll cast Static Disruption on his furthest target, hitting them, so a healer should bait this out of the raid. Now also Also, anytime a player dies while he's alive, he'll heal for 40% health. This is reduced to 20% with abilities like Mortal Strike or Wound Poison. You also hit the tank by Overwhelming Power, which increases their damage dealt by 200%, but also after 25 seconds they will die and do a 15-yard AoE damage. So a taunt swap should happen before this, and that tank needs to run away to die. Make sure they're soul stoned, and keep in mind that this mandatory death will heal the boss. Kologarn. The taunt swap is Overhead Smash, puts a debuff on the tank called Crunch Armor. Taunt swap at like 2. He focuses people with Eye Beam, so dodge this. And since he's stationary, a tank must always be in melee range. Your DPS want to attack the right arm, which is actually on your left as you're looking at the boss. This arm will grab random raid members and it needs to be DPS to release them so they won't die. When the arm dies, it hurts Kologarn for 15% and spawns small adds that need to be picked up by the tank and cleave down. Other than that, DPS focus on the chest. The left arm does do constant raid damage, which can pretty easily be healed through. Crazy Cat Lady. Start the fight off by line of sighting the boss by the stairway. One tank pick up the boss and the other on these sentry adds. These adds should be misdirected to the boss and cleave down. Every 40 seconds, she will fear everyone and follow it with a Sentinel Blast, which does heavy AoE damage. Someone in your group needs to have Fear Ward or Will of the Forsaken, Berserker Rage, Human Racial, do whatever to break the fear and interrupt this cast. She'll also cast Sonic Screech on the tank. Your raid needs to stack up on the tank to split this damage. Throughout the fight, she'll spawn a Feral Defender ad. At certain points, the cat will not care about aggro. When you kill it, it leaves a void zone that everyone must move out of. Hodir. Before the fight, you'll notice a bunch of iced NPCs. Break these out because they will help throughout the fight with buffs. During the fight, you need to keep moving for his Biting Cold passive. Hodir will also cast Freeze and root melee players for 15 seconds. This can be dispelled. Blue circles spawn around, just dodge them. There will also be starlights that shine down, stand in these for an increased attack speed buff. Hodir casts a 9-second cast called Flash Freeze. Snow piles will start forming. You need to stand in the snow piles before it goes off or you will get iced. Hard mode is just killing him within 2 minutes for extra gear. Thorim. You need to split your raid into a gauntlet group and an arena group. Towards the start of the fight, there will be a lever on the left side that has a 10-second cast time. Once it's pulled, your gauntlet group can start running the gauntlet. The arena group will just have to worry about countless enemies coming down. Just keep DPSing them. The gauntlet group does the same thing, but they're just running through the gauntlet. There's also fireballs to dodge. Face the Colossus away from the raid as it has a frontal cone. Then the ancient rune giants will knock players back and will also affect a random player with a rune detonation. They just need to run away from the raid. At the top, run against the walls since the center has traps on it. If you reach Thorim within 2 minutes and 45 seconds, you will activate hard mode. When Thorim lands, range and heal should spread out as he'll cast Chain Lightning. He also casts a lightning charge in random directions and it does a lightning cone. The taunt swap mechanic is Unbalanced Strike. If hard mode is activated, Thorim will have a lot of health and do a lot more damage. The only real difference besides this is that Sif will be in the fight as more of an annoyance, as she isn't targetable. She'll cast Frost Bolts and volleys on players as well as rooting them with Frost Nova. Freya. There are 3 Elder NPCs around the room. Killing them disables hard mode. Leaving them up enables hard mode, making the fight much more difficult. It essentially just makes her and all of her adds a lot stronger. When the fight starts, she has immense self-healing, so don't blow cooldowns on her. You'll have to fight through waves of enemies, and there's 6 waves. She'll spawn a Storm Lasher, or Water Spirit, and Snap Lasher. These need to die within 12 seconds of each other. The Snap Lasher is the most threatening, so AoE cleave off of it. She'll spawn Detonating Lashers, group these up and AoE them down. They do deal a bit of raid-wide damage when they die, so healers just be aware of that. An Ancient Conservator will spawn and needs to be tanked. It will pacify everyone, so get under a mushroom that spawns so you can start attacking again. It will affect a random player with Nature's Fury. Get out of the raid under another mushroom if you get this. There will also be an ANR's Gift Tree that spawns. Immediately kill it or it will heal Freya. Once the waves are dead, you'll attack Freya, and the only new mechanic is Nature's Bomb. They'll spawn under players and explode, doing a lot of damage. Mimiron. You can activate hard mode before the fight by pressing the big red button behind him. This makes him and all of his adds in the fight do more damage, and in phase 4 of this phase, there's pretty much an extra ability that just requires to dodge. It also makes the enrage 10 minutes instead of 15 minutes on normal. Leviathan Mach 2 is the first enemy to fight. Range and healer should spread from Napalm Shell. The tank will get affected by Plasma Blast, taking a lot of damage. Your tank needs to mitigate this, and healers should watch out for it. There will be mines that spawn throughout this phase. Your raid needs to just watch out for them, don't run over them, and the boss will cast cast Shock Blast, your melee just needs to run away from it. Phase 2 is VX001. Most of the damage happens through this phase, so using Bloodlust or Hero here isn't a bad idea. Everyone should still be loosely spread for Rapid Burst, targeting a random player and hits anyone in a 90-degree cone. Kind of unavoidable. Heat Wave also goes out, everyone just takes more unavoidable damage. Rocket Strikes will spawn towards range members, marking the area with a big red circle, just dodge this. Then the boss will start casting a laser barrage in a direction and spin around in a clockwise or counter. Do not get hit by this or you will die. Phase 3, you're fighting the aerial command unit. Since this boss is in the air, it can't be traditionally tanked, so you'll want a Warlock tank on it. Range should, for the most part, be on the boss to end this phase. Adds will spawn in this phase for your tank to pick up. Bomb bots will also spawn that fixate targets, ranged to kill these. An orange beam will summon an assault bot that does a lot of tank damage. A tank should pick it up and run away from it while your group slows it and kills it. When it dies, it drops a magnetic core that needs to be looted. That person should use it under the boss and it will shoot up and hit the boss, making it come down. Everyone needs to switch to it and end the phase. Phase 4, you'll fight all 3 sections of the boss at the same time. They're at half health and have half the abilities. Plasma Blast, Napalm Shell, and Heat Wave will not happen, and adds will not spawn. Frost Bombs will spawn around on hard mode. Your DPS needs to split on all 3 parts and kill them at the same time. General Vezax. He gives off a permanent aura of despair, pretty much disabling all mana regen from talents, gear, and buffs. First, the melee will have to worry about interrupting a Searing Flames cast, which repeatedly happens throughout the fight. Every minute the boss will cast Surge of Darkness, so he will do a lot of damage to the tank. Tank should use a mitigation for this. Now for the range. There will be shadow crashes that soar towards a location. Dodge these to not take their initial hit, but they leave behind a black puddle that your range should stand in, as it gives off a damage buff, as well as reduces mana cost of spells by 75%. It does also reduce healing done by 75%, so it's a double-edged sword. Best method is to split your range into 2 groups, so half of the range and healer should get the buff. Mark of the Faceless is very important to look out for. A random range or healer will get this and need to move out of their group immediately, or it will siphon health from their grade and heal the boss. It's a long fight already, so don't make it worse. Through the fight there will be Serenite Vapors. Kill these and they will leave behind a puddle to stand in. You'll get a stacking debuff which hurts you but restores mana. You should be able to safely take around 5 stacks of this. The hard mode is to actually not kill the Vapors, and then 4 minutes into the fight it spawns a Serenite Animus that makes the boss invulnerable while it's up, so your raid needs to kill it. Yogg-Saron. Before engaging, you will have noticed that each of the bosses around the circle area that you defeated will help you. If you don't talk to them, they will not help you, triggering hard mode. Leaving 1 keeper gives you exclusive hard mode items. No keeper helping you drops a guaranteed Mimiron's head mount. Phase 1 of the fight. Sarah will be at the center and not attackable. There will be guardian ads that spawn that need to be killed on top of her. These guardian ads need to stay interrupted as well. Watch out for all the green puddles around the room, as they will spawn extra ads if touched. If you have very high DPS, you may consider touching them to spawn more ads to get phase 1 done quicker, otherwise dodge them. Before the guardian ad dies, melee run away because they will explode and do high damage to anyone within 15 yards. It takes 9 guardians to bring Yogg into phase 2. Everyone has 100 sanity. Many mechanics in the fight will drain sanity, and you don't want to reach 0 sanity or you get mind controlled. As long as Freya is helping you, there will be green beams on the sides of the room to regenerate sanity. Through the entire phase, tentacles will spawn. Kill constructor tentacles immediately as they're grabbing raid members and flailing them around. Big crusher tentacles spawn that melee should never go near, and it gains stacks of focus anger as it's being attacked, which will do devastating tank damage. A tank should only go in near to interrupt its diminished power ability. Melee should be running around and interrupting and killing the corruptor tentacles. Through this phase there will be green lines to dodge, as well as 2 players will get linked together. You must run to this player to not lose sanity. After a minute in phase 2, portals will spawn. Melee DPS should go in these, and maybe a healer. There are neutral NPCs that turn into tentacles once attacked that your group must kill as fast as possible. There are skulls around the sides of the portal rooms. You need to turn your camera away from them or they'll drain your sanity. Once the NPCs die, you can go and attack the brain. Before the Induced Madness cast is finished, you need to use the portals to leave them or you get mind controlled. Then 20 seconds later, new portals spawn. Phase 2, you keep repeating this until the brain reaches 30% health. Yogg is now attackable. Your raid will want to be on his sides and not in front to not lose sanity. An Immortal Guardian adds spawns that your tank needs to take and drag it into melee to be cleaved. It also needs to be interrupted. Also through this phase, Sarah will cast Lunatic Gaze. Everyone should turn around for 4 seconds to not lose sanity. And that is the entire Ulduar raid.